Guys, it's Alexis, aka the Sloth Reader, and I'm here today to do my 200 subscriber Q&A. About 2 weeks ago I asked you guys for some questions, so today I'm here to answer these questions. Let's just go ahead and get into it. The first question is, what is your favorite book to movie adaptation? Hands down, the Lord of the Rings films. I think the Lord of the Rings films are very successful movies. I think the storytelling in them and the character development in the movies as themselves is really, really well done. I think you can really not like the books or have never read the books but still love the movies. I mean, I think that's true for a lot of people, so I think they're very successful adaptations. The next question is, what book needs to have a movie? I filmed an entire video on this, I think like 2 months ago, but my answer to this question is always I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. I kind of don't understand why it hasn't been made into a movie yet, given how popular the book was, 2 years ago or so. I just think the vibe of it fits so well to having a really atmospheric movie, and I think that there's a lot of really cool things they could do with a lot of the unique writing elements to the story. The next question is OTP, and for those of you who don't know, OTP just means one true pairing, so it's basically a relationship that you really, really like. In all existence is a really hard question for me to answer. Back in February, I did do an entire video about my OTPs, which I will link down below if you're interested in checking out. So I don't know, that's a hard question for me to answer. So instead, I'm going to mention 2 relationships that I discovered this year that I really have fallen in love with. The first is Peter Kavinsky and Laura Jean from To All the Boys I Loved Before. The start of the relationship, how it develops. I haven't read the 3rd book yet, but I'm excited to see how the whole story wraps up. The second one I'm going to mention is Percy and Annabeth from the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series by Rick Riordan. I view these characters like a proud parent, so I was just like, look at Percy finally getting the girl of his dreams, and I was like, yeah! The next question is my no TP. I don't think I've ever read a book and just like really hated a relationship in it, like so much where I've been like, no, 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 I don't want to read about this, I hate this, blah, blah, blah. The only one that can kind of sort of come to mind for me is a very unpopular opinion because a lot of people actually love this relationship, and that is Cress and Thorn from the Lunar Chronicles. And it's not that I think that their personalities don't go well together. It's more of a personal thing why I don't ship them. I don't like the relationship between them. Yeah, it basically just comes down to the whole time I was reading Cress, I kept imagining Cress as like a child, as like a 12-year-old, because her character's just written like really naively and kind of childishly. So like I kept imagining her that way. And Thorn is like 24, so like I kept picturing like a little girl, and then like these romantic scenes were happening, and I was just like, and like in my mind I know she's 16, but my brain like couldn't get to that part. So yeah, so for that reason I don't ship Cress and Thorn, is just because I had like a mental block to that, like pretty much from the moment Cress was introduced. So sorry, but I don't ship them at all. The next question is things that make a book auto-buy. So I actually thought about doing a video on this, so basically like my bookish buzzwords, words that just automatically make me interested in a book. I have 2 answers for this one. The first is magical competitions. Pretty much anytime there's a magical competition in a book, I'm into it. Anytime there are people using magic to battle, or they're in a competition and the competition itself is magic, any of that kind of stuff is like totally up my alley. The Triwizard Tournament from Goblet of Fire, the Essentosh from A Gathering of Shadows, the Tournament of Wishes and A Crown of Wishes, just that kind of thing is like automatically I'll be interested in a book if I read that as a synopsis. It's just, I love it. The other one is just a group of people with superpowers. I know that's such an oversaturated thing, but I just love it so much. I've talked about how I'm a huge X-Men fan. I grew up on X-Men. So that idea of just like this group of teenagers or these group of young people in their 20s who all have these individual powers and like how they cope with their powers and all that kind of thing, it's just right up my alley. As soon as I hear that that's what a story is about, I am immediately interested in it. Doesn't mean I like every book like that, but it makes me interested to check it out. Next question is, how do you organize your bookshelves? Sneak peek, I have a bookshelf tour coming up in a couple of days, so you'll basically see that there, but I organize my shelves by author last name alphabetically, starting with A going to Z. I worked in a library for 2 years, so that is the most natural way for me to store fiction books, is by author last name. I've tried other methods of having my shelves organized, and it just never works for me. It ends up me being very frustrated because I can't find anything. So yes, they're organized by author last name. The next question is, what inspired you to start a channel? This is gonna sound way more egotistical than I mean it to, but basically I just stumbled onto BookTube and I was just like, I could do that. I was like, I could totally just talk about books in a room by myself to a camera. I was like, I don't have any reservations to doing that. So I was like, I could do it. I mean, I was just confident in my ability to do it, basically. And of course, when I started my channel too, I had a lot of free time to film and edit videos and you know, think up content ideas and stuff like that. So so it was basically a combination of those two ideas, is that I kind of was looking for a hobby, and I was like, yeah, I thought I could do it, so I did it. The next question is, what is your favorite place to read? My favorite place to read is in bed. That's typically where I do a good chunk of my reading, especially on my Kindle. But I'm actually trying to get out of the habit of reading in my bed because it's starting to like make my shoulders hurt from like having to like, you know, there's no comfortable way to read in bed, right? So I'm trying to read more on my sofa, and trying to get out of the habit of reading in my bed. I also enjoy listening to audiobooks in the car. Driving is like a hobby of mine anyway, so I like to pair the two together. 2 hobbies, same amount of time. It's like a win-win situation. The next question is, how did you first come across BookTube? I don't remember exactly how it happened. I remember I was on Bookstagram first, which is the bookish Instagram, which I found through a BuzzFeed article. And I was like, this is so cool. People just take pictures of books and talk about books. And I was like, that's awesome. And then I don't know if somebody was like, I got a suggested or something. I don't know how I made the jump onto YouTube. I don't remember. But I remember Reagan at Peru's Project. She was the first channel I had ever seen. I saw one of her videos and I was like, wait. I was like, there's a whole section of YouTube just dedicated to talking about books. I was like, I'm in. I'm in. Sold on the idea. So that's, I mean, I don't know the details, but that's pretty much what happened. The next question is, what channels would you recommend? Oh gosh, I thought about doing a video all about that too, just my favorite booktubers. I have to right off the bat say Books and Lala. I really enjoy her channel and her content. She makes me laugh. She's very, very funny and expressive, and her personality just comes across so easily on camera. She mostly reads thrillers and literary fiction, but she does read a lot of YA as well. So I like being able to get recommendations from her in those categories. I also really, really like It's Jane Lindsay, and I'll leave all of these down below. But It's Jane Lindsay, she's super opinionated, she's super feminist, which I love, and she reads a lot of different genres. You know, she'll read fantasy and contemporary and literary fiction. She'll pick up poetry every now and then, and so I like that as well. I can get a bunch of different recommendations from her channel, so I love her channel as well. Also a huge fan of Trina at Between Chapters. Trina is just so good at like concisely reviewing books. Like she knows how to narrow down her thoughts into describing a book and saying what she did and didn't like about it in, you know, like 2-3 minutes, and it's super impressive to me because I can't do that. So I really enjoy her channel as well. Also, she makes me laugh a lot. And I find her personality very charming, and it's easy to watch her videos. But yeah, so those are the 3 I'll mention now. But yeah, let me know if you guys would want to see me do like a top booktuber video, because I could easily do that. I really like a lot of booktube channels. The next question is, what are your top authors? I have a video planning to come out in July for the monthly recommendations group, all about my auto-buy authors, my auto-read authors. So you'll get a bigger, more extensive list then. I don't know, that's a hard question for me to answer, because I don't feel like there are that many authors that I'm just like overwhelmingly just in love with. V.E. Schwab is of course one. I will pick up any book V.E. Schwab writes, no questions asked. Patrick Ness is the same way. I think Patrick Ness is a very talented writer. And I'm interested in reading everything he writes. I have to admit, I'm emotionally attached to Rochelle Mead as an author, because of how much I love Vampire Academy, so I own almost all of her books, even if I haven't necessarily read all of her books. But there's a lot of new authors too that like quickly climb their way up my like top authors list, so I don't know, that's a hard question to answer. Speaking of hard questions to answer, there's this question. Which is, do you value the same kinds of storytelling in books that you do in video games? If not, where does the difference come from? I'm going to answer this question to the best of my ability. I think when you're looking at books and video games, you can't judge them the same, because you're looking at 2 different medium types. You know, video games are visual, books are obviously not. So with video games, in general, there are certain story elements I like better visually. I've talked a lot about how I love science fiction, but I don't really read a lot of science fiction books because I love to see science fiction played out. And I don't always, you know, go towards picking up a science fiction book. Horror's the same way. You know, I love horror video games. I absolutely love horror as a genre in video games, but I don't really read a lot of horror books. Because I'm in love with seeing horror play out. So certain things like that, I think for me personally are more successful visually. So in a sense, there are certain genres I lean towards maybe in a video game as opposed to in a book. I will say, both in books and in video games, I prefer third person. I prefer to play as a third person character in video games. I prefer to read books in third person. I just like the depth that it adds to the world, and to being able to, you know, not necessarily be in that character frame of mind, but being able to, like, you know, look over their shoulder, that kind of thing. I do prefer third person. Obviously, I'm not opposed to first person, but I do prefer third person, and that's similarly with video games as well. Like my favorite video game, which is The Last of Us, you play as Joel, and you play third person as Joel over the shoulder. So you're watching Joel play the game. You're playing the game as Joel going through the game, you know, as opposed to with like BioShock, where you're playing first person as a character in each individual game. So you don't really get to see the characters react to things because you're the character, if that makes sense. So in that sense, I like third person in both as well. I don't know if that answered that question, but that was the best answer I could come up with, and I'm sure that took me like 4 minutes to answer. The last question is, can you tell us something horribly invasive about your cats? Let's go find out. What's something horribly invasive? Oh. Okay, alright, down you go. What about you? Anything horribly invasive that you want to tell the camera? No? You just want me to put you down? Alright, I can do that. Alright guys, so that was my 200 subscriber Q&A. I'm hoping to definitely do more Q&As in the future, because I think it's a lot of fun to interact with you guys, but I am always trying to answer your questions in the comments to the best of my ability. So yeah, if you have any questions you'd like to ask me, please feel free to leave them below. Or if you just want to chit chat about anything, I'm always here for that too, and I'll see you guys soon with another video.